Hello everyone, I Amit Kumar Bose. Welcome you to this Mains 2022 Indian Society Questions and Answers discussion session with Analog IAS Academy. To start with the discussion, I would like to state a few facts here. Number one, as the normal trend is, we are looking in the same pattern. We are looking at 6 questions this time as well. 3 questions which are 10 markers, question number 8, 9, and 10. And 3 questions which are 15 markers, question number 18, 19, and 20. This is typically the pattern that has been going on, and in accordance with that pattern, the questions have been set. Okay. In fact, I'm genuinely elated to state here that at least 3 questions here in this paper, which has come from our class discussion. Right. So let me take up the questions one by one, and let's also discuss the answers of these questions as it is anticipated or as it should be written. Okay. For that matter, I'm just sharing my screen with you people. Okay. This is the first question, and yes, this was anticipated. Explore and evaluate the impact of a work from home on family relationships. Now, whenever you approach this question, please try and understand the first fact here. You have 150 words to write. Now, no one can write exactly in 150 words. So the idea is plus minus 10% of 150 words. That means in between 135 words to 165 words. Keep it within that. And then this question is asking you to explore and evaluate. So while evaluating, we generally need to look into all the possible aspects, all the possible dimensions here. Okay. Now, how to do that? I'll say at least look at the positive impacts and the negative impacts of work from home culture that developed in the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? What happened here? We are seeing how, say I'm going for the positive impacts first. So while talking about the positive impacts, first thing that I'll be talking about is how given the work from home culture, people who given the work pressure and the workload were not being able to spend time with their families, were not being able to be close to their families. They got that opportunity. They got close to their families, right? A unique kind of family bonding started developing. Yes, no doubt there are negative impacts as well. We'll come to that, but this is the first and foremost significant aspect or positive impact that happened. That family bonding started increasing. Simultaneously, not only family bonding started increasing, I'm looking at the aspect of gender sensitization. Till now in India, given the patriarchal nature of the society, men hardly had the idea about the domestic work, right? Even today, a major section of women here in India, they are homemakers, and men, they are the ones who are the bread earners. Now, as a result, what happened, men, they hardly ever appreciated the job of the homemakers. Now, when this work from home was happening, at that point of time, lockdown was also going on. And in that backdrop, we saw the domestic helps and others, they were not being able to come to work. And so hence both the problems were happening. And in that backdrop, what we saw that the families, when they were remaining together, they were staying together, both the husband and the wife, they were doing the jobs, the domestic jobs together. They were doing domestic services, say washing dishes, washing clothes, cleaning the house. They were doing it together. So even uh, this had a positive impact in terms of gender sensitization as well, and realizing the value of the domestic work that's done by the other half of the population, right? That's genuinely significant here. Okay. Now, if I have to talk about the negative impacts, now, please try and understand. I'm intentionally not stretching much. Why? Because you don't have much words to write here. 135 words is not too much. 135 to 165 words is not too much. 150 words as the word limit is, it's not too much. So within that, you have to keep your answer restricted. So that's the aspect that I'm keeping in mind, and that's why I'm keeping my answer to the point, strictly to the point. So now I'm looking at the negative impacts. If I have to talk about the negative impacts, number one, I'm looking at people, they were actually shuffling between work and the home, right? They were neither properly able to concentrate in their work, nor were they able to do the domestic services properly. They were hustling, as we say. At the same point of time, we are also looking at the lack of privacy. Today, in the urban areas especially, the apartments and others, they're not of much bigger size, right? The apartments, standard apartments are 900 to 1100 square feet. That's the size of the standard apartments. And in that backdrop, you can easily understand um, when 4 or 5 people they were living together within that 900 to 1100 square feet area, there was hardly anything called privacy, right? At the same point of time, given this continuous closeness where a kind of fatigue, relationship fatigue was also visible, which we saw in the form of rising instances of divorce cases being filed. That too we have seen, right? So in that sense, I'm also looking at the negative impacts here, right? Just write this in a structured, organized manner, right? Uh, Say in the introduction, you talk about the evaluation aspect, how to what we mean by evaluation. So why we need to look at both the positive and negative impacts. And in the conclusion, let's be let's be honest here that it had both negative and positive impacts. We are yet to understand whether this was good or bad. We still do not know. So blanket categorization of work from home culture being bad, we cannot do that. Okay, that's one aspect. The second thing that I'm looking at that's the first question number 8. Now I'm coming to question number 9. The question number 9 reads, how is the growth of tier 2 cities related to the rise of middle class with an emphasis on the culture of consumption? Okay. Now see, uh, yes, in India today, I'm looking at an increased rate of urbanization, but this urbanization trend is happening for a different reason. It's not an organized urbanization. What I'm looking at, ordinarily speaking, we have, see, officially recognized, we have 5 metropolitan cities, but as such, let us be very honest, we have 6 metropolitan cities in India today. Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, Bengaluru. These are the 5 recognized, but I would also include Hyderabad in this, right? So these 6 are as such the metropolitan cities in India. Then comes the tier 1 cities, Lucknow, Patna, Chandigarh, Bhubaneswar, right? Jaipur. So many, Thiruvananthapuram, right? Then comes the tier 2 cities, say Guntur. I would also talk about say Varanasi, uh, these kind of cities. Okay, I'm looking at those tier 2 cities. Today, what's happening with the increase with the rise in middle class in India, right? As a direct impact of globalization, I'm looking at job opportunities becoming available at distant places, even at the natives of the people. Not just I cannot give the credit only to globalization. I should also be talking about the digitization program, Digital India, which has made jobs available at the native places as well, right? Someone even from say Hazaribagh sitting there can start something an online initiative at ease. So as a result, I'm looking at rise of jobs and work opportunities being available at the natives of the people. Simultaneously, what I'm looking at, that with jobs becoming available, there is a increasing trend of rising middle class here in India. People are getting money, people are getting salaries, people are getting remunerations, and naturally they would tend to consume more. Once they get money in their hands, they would try to improve their standard of living. With the improved standard of living, I'm looking at people, those facilities which were available previously only in the metropolitan cities or tier 1 cities, say fine dining. At the same point of time, I'm looking at uh, utilization of say television, refrigerator, uh, microwaves, cars, automobile in that sense, right? I'm looking at that consumption pattern even in the tier 2 cities today. Clear? So from that particular point of view, I'm looking at this consumption culture. Say, for example, Kia. It's a South Korean brand. I'm looking at Kia showroom, even at the district headquarters in India, at number of district headquarters, they have Kia, Hyundai, these showrooms. Mahindra, they have these showrooms there. So people, they naturally, you can easily understand, with these things becoming available at the district headquarters, people, they are naturally tending to buy and consume these things more, right? Lenskart is opening its stores across India. Why to tier two cities, tier three, tier four cities? They are being also being approached, right? So that's where I'm looking at the rise and growth of the tier two cities. Okay, so that's this question. That's the answer to this question. At the same point of time, I'm looking at question number 10. Now, please be careful. All of these questions are 10 markers, requiring you to write 150 words only. Okay, and as I said, none of us are supercomputers. We cannot write exactly in 150 words. So the idea is to write within the range of plus minus 10% of 150 words. That means within 135 to 165 words. Okay. So this is also a question which is anticipated. This was anticipated from a different point of view altogether. We anticipate this question from the point of view of, say, the denotified tribes, right? Uh, However, the question came in a different pattern, and it's far more holistic in that sense, right? It's really good in that sense. How? The question reads: given the diversities among tribal communities in India, in which specific context should they be considered as a single category? See, I don't only have the distinction between the denotified tribes or criminal tribes, as they're called. Previously, the term was criminal tribes. Today, they are called denotified tribes, and the scheduled tribes, those who are recognized and are listed within the schedule. Okay, that's not the only distinction. If I look at the overall tribal landscape here in India, look at the diversity I'm looking at. Starting from the Jaruas, Unjes, Champanes, and Sentinelese in the Andaman Nicobar Island group who are still living in the hunting-gathering stage of the society, to the Chola Naikans in Nilgiri region who are also living in a hunting-gathering stage of civilization. From there, I'm going to the Dards, Brukpas of the Ladakh region, the Aryan tribes of the Ladakh region, right? Who lead a completely secluded life. Approaching them without the government's permission is not possible. You have to go take permission from the Commissioner of Ladakh, and then only you can go there. From there, I'm looking at the tribes of the northeast of India, right? Say Nagas. We normally say Nagas, right? Among the Nagas, there are at least 70 sub-tribes. And a number of them, say Konyak Nagas, or number of such Sema Nagas, then Angamis, they have been able to harness the advantage of modernization. But Konyaks and number of such tribes are there who are still lacking far, far behind. Same thing I can say about the Kukis in Manipur. From there, I'm looking at the Santhals, Mundas, Orao, Ho, Gond. Among the Gonds, even if I may say, the Maria Gonds and Muria Gonds, they are still leading a decent type of life. But in the Abujma region, I'm looking at certain categories of Gond people who are still living in hunting-gathering stage. And from there, I'm going to the Minas and Bhils of Rajasthan, Bishnois, Minas, right? There is practically no difference between the so-called mainstream society. I'm saying so-called mainstream because we genuinely have a issue with respect to definition of the tribals, right? So that's why I'm saying that so-called mainstream society and the tribals, recognized tribals, the scheduled tribes here. You would hardly find any difference between them, the Bishnois, Minas, and anyone else in India, right? So from that point of view, I am looking at this diversity among the tribals. So what are those common factors which are making the tribals the single category? See, in spite of all the efforts, not all the sections of the tribals they got the equal advantage of the efforts taken. More than that, I'm looking at the definition of the tribals, the commonly accepted definition of the tribals given here in India by Lokur committee at first, which has also been accepted by the Khaka committee, right? Relative seclusion, issue with modernization, right? Equal advantage of modernization or modernity. Number of such aspects are talked about in that definition. Yes, that definition is giving me a holistic understanding or creating at least a single category of the tribals here. So from that point of view, I think we can answer this question, right? So yes, I need you to look into that definition of the local committee uh, that has also been accepted by the Khaka committee. Okay. So from that point of view, write this answer. Now I'm coming to the question number 18. Now this is a 250 words question, right? Again, the same formula, plus minus 10%. So in between 225 words to 275 words. Okay. This question is also anticipated, although not exactly for Indian society, but for sociology. But this was anticipated. Why? If you remember, in the recent past, a few years back, the issue of the Lingayats, issue with the Lingayats were going on in Karnataka. It is since then that this issue has been making its rounds. It has not silent. It has not gone silent. It's still there. So please, quite often than not, we think that current affairs means exactly what happened in the last 1 year. No, current affairs means those issues which are making their rounds, which are going on right now. To take into consideration all those issues. That's the idea of current affairs, right? And this issue, it may have started some 4 or 5 years back, 4 years back, but it is still making its rounds. So from that point of view, I would say we should be giving this issue its due credit. Now, from that point of view, I'm looking at this. Sect, what is sect? Sect is a small subgroup within the group of religion. That's the idea. And this small subset of religion, they would be having a charismatic leadership. They would be extremely well organized within them. They would be having their own organization. They would also be having their own scriptures. They would be adhering to the broader scriptures as well, the broader understanding as well of the religion. But they would also be having their own scriptures. Now, if I have to talk about the examples of the tribal community of the sects in that sense, I may take the Lingayats as one of the examples. I may talk about the Arya Samajists. I may talk about the Radha Swami Satsang. I may talk about the, say, Ramakrishna Mission, right? From that point of view, I would be looking at sects or sect within religion. Now, so sect is, honestly speaking, sect should be in association, should be understood in association with religion. What about caste and region? Yes, sect is very much region based. How come? Say, let's talk about the predominance of Ramakrishna Mission in Bengal. Yes, Ramakrishna Mission, they have their centers across the world. But the predominance of Ramakrishna Mission in Bengal, that cannot be seen elsewhere. Or similarly, the predominance of the Lingayats in Karnataka, that cannot be seen elsewhere. Or that of the Radhaswami Satsang in Western UP and those regions, that cannot be seen elsewhere, right? Similarly, caste-wise, say I'm looking at the influence of the Radhaswami Satsang among the trading community, the Jats and the Khatris, right? Or say, for example, this is no more a sect. This is uh, a religion today, separate religion today, but it started as a sect within Hinduism, Jainism, right? See, let's be very honest here. When Gautam Buddha and Mahavir Vardhaman, they started their initiative. They started the initiative to reform Hinduism, the traditional Brahminical orthodoxy that was visible in Hinduism in 600 BC. This was more a revolt against that Brahminical orthodoxy. They both, they're coming from Kshatriya category, right? Kshatriya caste in that sense. Now, in spite of all that, when I'm looking at the influence of the Jainism among the various caste categories, I do see the influence of Jainism was far more on the traders community than on any other community. Even the agriculturists were not able to adopt Jainism properly. Why? Because of the too much of influence or too much of focus, too much of stress of Jainism on ahimsa, right? The idea was that even the pests who are infecting the crops on the field, those pests should also not be, uh, they should also be um, not be harmed, right? Now, you think from the point of view of an agriculturist, he can't do that, right? So it is from that particular aspect that I'm seeing that today, uh, or why today, from the very beginning, it is only the traders community, the traders castes, they were very comfortable and they could very comfortably adopt Jainism when it was originally a caste and then subsequently it became a religion, separate religion today, right? So yes, I do see the salience of sect both in caste, region, and religion in Indian society, right? Now, next, this is uh, this is also one question which is anticipated. This is actually a question which is bridging two particular segments of the syllabus of Indian society. One, the salient features of Indian society, and also the topic of secularism. Right. Let's talk about first the idea of Indian form of secularism. What is the Indian form of secularism? I'm looking at the rise of this idea of Indian form of secularism in the philosophies of Ashoka the Great. Ashoka, when he, after Kalinga War, when he converted from Chandashok to Dhammashok, the pillar edicts and rock edicts that he started to erect across his empire, what he was doing, the philosophies he was writing on those edicts, which constitutes his Dhamma, they were the Dhamma or philosophies of life of all the people, not from a particular community or not from a particular religion, right? We know that Ashoka would adopt Buddhism. He was Ajivika, his father was an Ajivika. Bindusara was an Ajivika. So Ashoka was not born a Buddhist, but he would adopt Buddhism, right? So from there, Ajivika was a sect within Hinduism, a Gnostic sect within Hinduism. That's what Ajivika was. On the other hand, we know that Chandragupta Maurya, he adopted Jainism, right? He died in Shravana, and that's history. Let's not confuse here. Let's come back here. So Ashoka adopted Buddhism, but in spite of that, the philosophies that he would write down, those philosophies were applicable to every religion, all the dominant religions of the time, all the dominant religions and castes and sects of the time, right? That idea, and Ashoka, he ensured, what his principle was that he made these rockets and pillars in public. They were displayed in public, they were kept in public, so that, and he ensured this, these dhamma was a set of instruction to the common people, set of requests to the common people, but it was a set of instruction to the administrators, to the governors and other government servants. The governors and other government servants, they were bound to follow them, while the common people, for them, this was a request, right? So Ashoka put the onus on the state that you do this, you have to do this. Clear? The same philosophy was then taken up, we would see in the reign of Kanishka. The same philosophy can also be seen in the reign of Akbar the Great. That's why in India we do call Ashoka, Akbar both as great, the great, right? The father of the nation, Mr. M.K. Gandhi, he would also imbibe this philosophy. There is a very famous song associated with him, Raghupati Raghava Raja Ram. In that song, there is a line which says, Ishwar Allah Tere Naam. You who's called as Ishwar by some, you who's called as Allah by some, right? And that philosophy subsequently would be taken up by the framers of Indian Constitution and would be included in Indian Constitution, right? I'm looking at the preamble, I'm looking at Article 1, Article 25 to 28, right? So Indian form of secularism, the basic notion that we understand is that the state in India does not have a religion, but the state is bound to, duty bound to, accept and respect every religion. That's Indian form of secularism, and that's why it's called the positive form of secularism, which is different from the Western form of secularism. Okay, I'm intentionally not discussing the Western form of secularism here. That's not the need of the question. Now, To practice such a philosophy where the state does not have a religion of its own, but it accepts and respects every religion. And so the state requests the common people as well. You can easily understand. So many diverse philosophies they should be leading or living simultaneously. Here comes the idea of tolerance, assimilation, and pluralism. And that's exactly what was visible even in the works of Ashoka the Great as well. Now, when he talked about Dhamma and when he wrote down those principles on his rock edicts and pillar edicts, as I said, that those principles or those philosophies were for every religion. There were Hindus, there were Buddhists, there were Jainas, right? Among the Hindus, the Nirvana cult was there, the Vedic Hindus were there, Tantric Hindus were there, Ajivikas were there, Charvakas were there. Charvakas and Ajivikas, they are highly materialistic and atheist form of Hinduism. Today, ordinarily not practiced, but they all were so dominant at that point of time. Clear? And in that backdrop, I'm looking at Ashoka promoting those philosophies. So to practice those philosophies, it required tolerance, it required assimilation, where everyone was brought into the fold, that you all have equal rights. See what Ashoka did. He put the onus on the state, not on the common people. Right? So that's how this answer should be written. Right? Do you know why I have been using these examples? The last phrase, justify your answer. Okay. Now I'm coming to question number 20. It says, elucidate the relationship between globalization and new technology in a world of scarce resources. Sorry, actually, I have an issue here because of which this screen is getting changed so easily. Now, elucidate the relationship between globalization and new technology in a world of scarce resources with special reference to India. Scarce resources, right? What do we mean by scarce resources here? Is it only oil? Is it only water? No, even spectrums are scarce, right? Now, as an impact of globalization, what do I see? I'm looking at the rise of, say, the clean technologies. I'm looking at the rise of alternative technologies. We all know how focus India is giving towards solar energy. The International Solar Alliance, in that backdrop, I'm looking at this idea. I'm looking at this question, right? So the way we know that the headquarters of International Solar Alliance is in India, Manesar, right? Now, in that backdrop, I'm looking at the rise of the new technology and how that's helping Indian society here. Clear? The renewable energies, the new energies, they are being made cheap. They are being continuously promoted to are being made one of the foundation stones for the improvement in standard of living of the common people, right? And the advantage we are getting from globalization to that respect. So holistically, this thing has to be looked at. Why did I use the example of International Solar Alliance? This question asks us to elucidate. Elucidate means where you are not only required to write the answer in an easy and lucid language, you're also supposed to substantiate yourself. That one word is asking you to do all of that thing. So in that respect, we need the examples as well. That's why I use the example of International Solar Alliance here. Clear? So that's these questions. I know I have used more words than you can write with respect to question number 19. Anyway, but ordinarily what I discussed with respect to question number 20, that's good enough. So you can easily understand why I have been using the word or why I have been giving the example. So I hope you can easily understand why I have been talking about the International Solar Alliance here, right? Because you need to use that example for elucidation purpose. Okay, good enough. I hope we have been able to do justice to the questions here, right? Uh, do try to write them, and if possible, you have the contact details of Analog here. You can easily send us. You can reach us out, and you can easily write those answers and send those answers to us. We would love to give you feedbacks based on those answers. That's all, guys. That's all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.